This was never just romance. It was trauma, power, and emotional dependency colliding in real time. Jessica entered that wedding already psychologically cornered, shamed by her family, diminished by her ex, and carrying years of abandonment as a single mother. Then Giovanni arrived at the exact moment her defenses were weakest and offered her something she had been denied for years: significance. That is what makes this story so unsettling. He is not merely attractive, he is psychologically dominant, highly observant, and deeply dangerous. The moment organized crime identifies her as his emotional leverage, the relationship stops being a fantasy and becomes a case study in how love can form inside a threat environment.
Clad in white lace, her sister Sophia was the very picture of a 23-year-old's flawless optimism. Jessica watched this parade of traditional triumph from table 12, a post reserved for social afterthoughts. Her seat was adjacent to the chaotic pulse of the kitchen doors, where staff emerged with champagne she could not afford. Chicago's Grand Marquis Ballroom, a cathedral of crystal and stone, presented the glittering skyline through its glass expanse, vibrating with inherited power. But a sharp, dissonant chord had struck. Security was closing in on someone at the reception desk. It had been 3 hours since she'd seen Lily, but the ghost of her 5-year-old daughter's downcast expression still lingered. Lily had pleaded to come, to don her thrift shop burgundy dress and see her Aunt Mary. Camilla, however, her ever-practical friend, had laid out the unsparing facts. High-end events and young children were an explosive combination. Lily was better off at home with a movie, safe from the silent judgment of family that was already settling on Jessica. That sentence was passed at 7:30 when she appeared without a partner, a 28-year-old single mother in a dress 2 years out of fashion. Her cousin Vanessa floated past carrying her 7-month pregnancy in a designer gown like a hard-won prize. And Vanessa's husband, who was also Jessica's former love, gave a nod, so brief it felt imagined. It was Tyler, the man who evaporated after she told him she was pregnant, only to wed her wealthy cousin 6 months on, pretending the life he'd destroyed never existed. Jessica, meanwhile, worked 12-hour rotations at Lurie Children's Hospital, coming home to her daughter's questions about a father and tallying the extra shifts needed to make rent. "Jessica, dear, you came alone?" The inquiry was from her mother, her voice a polished blend of feigned worry and genuine letdown. She had appeared at the table with her husband trailing, his expression one of weary acceptance of his daughter's supposed failures. "We thought you'd have a date. The Martinelli family is here. Their sons are excellent catches. They have that whole restaurant empire." "I'm fine, Mom," Jessica replied, her smile feeling like it could splinter into pieces. "Lily says congratulations to Sophia." "Oh, right, the child." The intentional dismissal of a 5-year-old landed like a deliberate jab. "Camilla's with her? Too bad you can't manage a real nanny." They vanished without waiting for an answer, drawn toward guests with greater social currency. They mingled with the clan's upper crust, her sister Lauren, a surgeon's wife, cousins who paraded graduate degrees and healthy investment accounts. And then Jessica, the pediatric nurse, the med school dropout who exchanged a doctor's coat for single motherhood in a 1-bedroom flat in a charitably termed up-and-coming area. Her thumb rested on 911 in her pocket, keeping a line open to be traced. Giovanni had warned her to hold off on filing a report until they knew which syndicate might strike back. The 7-course dinner was an endless sequence of tastes she couldn't register. The couple next to her planned a ski trip to Aspen. A woman across the table wore a diamond that cost more than Jessica made in 6 months. She simply smiled, a performance of polite interest, wondering how long it would take for anyone to notice if she disappeared. Then the first dance began. Sophia and her new husband moved as if weightless. Her parents came next, a living portrait of success by proxy. Lauren and her spouse joined in. In moments, the floor was a galaxy of coupled relations. Outside, the Chicago night had become a sheet of obsidian. The weather report had been clear, but a storm was writing its own story. A low thunder began to vibrate up from the ballroom's floor. A tremor felt beneath the music. Rain streamed down the glass walls, blurring the city lights into a weeping watercolor. "May I have this dance?" The voice was Tyler's. It hit her like a physical shock, tightening every muscle. She turned to find him alone. Vanessa was likely holding court somewhere else. "No, thank you." Her tone was antiseptic, the one she used with panicked parents at the hospital. "Come on, Jess, just one for old times." He tried on the boyish charm that used to work, back before she realized it was all he had. "Let's be adults here. We are being adults, and my answer is no." She fixed her eyes on the dance floor, a deliberate and final dismissal. He didn't move. "It doesn't have to be like this. I screwed up, I admit that, but—" "Tyler." She stood, her thin veneer of composure finally cracking. "Go back to your pregnant wife, dance with her, and get away from me." "My pregnant wife," he shot back, the charm curdling into acid, "is carrying my heir, not the mistake that cost you a career in medicine." She deserved to hit him. Instead, she stood perfectly still and watched him walk back to Vanessa, who was waiting at the edge of the dance floor. Across the room, Vanessa's gaze locked with hers. A possessive hand was on her stomach. She gave a small, annihilating smile that screamed one word: victory. As a new song began, the floor filled with pairs, their fluid grace a cruel contrast to the hurricane inside Jessica. She sank into her chair at table 12, fighting the urge to shatter in front of 200 people who saw her as a warning. That's when she saw him. He was by the bar, separate from the crowd but commanding its gravity. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with a body honed by discipline. The black suit was perfect, but it was his face that stopped her cold. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw cut from granite, and eyes that, even from across the room, seemed to slice through her defenses. He was watching her. It wasn't a passing look. It was a deliberate examination. A focus so sharp it should have felt wrong, yet it sent a different kind of jolt through her. She looked away first, heat flooding her cheeks. When she dared second glance, he was speaking with the older Martinelli brother, the restaurant tycoon. They exchanged a few words, and then the stranger started moving with unnerving purpose, cutting a straight line through the crowd directly toward her. Her first impulse was to run, to make up an excuse about her daughter and escape. But something held her fast to the chair at table 12 as he crossed the floor, moving with the absolute certainty of a man who has never had to take no for an answer. He came to a stop at her table. His presence was a physical force. The eyes that had seemed so piercing from a distance were up close, a warm light brown, like amber ignited by flame. A thin scar cut across his chin, a flaw that only deepened his intensity. He smelled of cedar and some dark, unknown spice. "You have been sitting here by yourself all night," he observed, his voice tinged with an accent from a classic Italian film. "It strikes me as a terrible waste." "I'm fine," she managed, her heart starting to hammer against her ribs. "But thank you." "No," he replied. "I don't think you are." He took the empty seat beside her without asking, a single smooth motion. "I think you are in profound pain, and you are trying very hard to hide it." The blunt accuracy of his words stole her breath. "You don't know anything about me." I know you are the only person alone at a family gathering. I know the man who just left you made you wish you were invisible. And I know you've checked your phone every 15 minutes, planning your exit." The edge of his mouth curved into something that wasn't a smile. "Am I wrong? You're observant." She set her phone down, suddenly seeing her own obvious misery as he must have seen it. "Are you a friend of the bride or groom?" "Neither." "Business with the Martinellis, then." He nodded toward the family. "They were my introduction. Giovanni Fioraldi." He offered his hand. His touch was firm and warm, a silent promise of strength. "Jessica Reed." "Jessica," he said again, testing the sound of the name. "The bride's sister, the one who came unaccompanied. In certain circles, that kind of information travels fast." He released her hand, but his presence seemed to anchor her in the spinning room. He leaned in. "Jessica Reed, I have a proposal for you." The sensible part of her screamed to flee back to her predictable life. A world without dangerously intense men in expensive suits. But a different voice inside her asked, "What kind of proposal?" Giovanni drew closer, his voice a low confidence against the room's murmur. "Dance with me. Be my wife for the rest of the night. Show this room you are not alone." The suggestion was audacious. A fake marriage with the man she just met? "Why not?" he said, his reasoning brutally simple. "It solves problems for us both." His face was unreadable, but in his amber eyes, something wild flickered. His proposition was delivered with the precision of a scalpel. "My family requires a wife. Yours, it seems, prefers you alone. We are for one another, a convenient truth." Any sane mind would have recoiled from the brutal calculus of his offer. "Think of it this way," he murmured, rising to his full height and offering a hand again, his eyes averted. "The orchestra has started and your ex-husband is watching. It is time for the performance to begin." A firm no was the only logical reply, but reason had long since fled the ballroom. Her fingers found his. One dance, she promised herself. His smile was the gleam on a drawn blade. "We will see," he said, and led her to the floor, his confidence a tangible force, his hand a branding iron on the small of her back, the pressure of his grip a terrifying promise. The man's sheer size was belied by the grace with which he guided her. "You move beautifully," she noted, falling into his rhythm. His posture was impeccable, the result of extensive formal training. "A requirement of my mother's," he admitted, his expression clouding over at the memory. "The cancer took her 2 years ago." An apology seemed a hollow sentiment, but it was the only one she possessed. "I'm so very sorry." His amber gaze locked with hers. "She would have found you remarkable. She had a fondness for women who were their own architects, women who might want a man but would never need one." A sharp, bitter edge entered her voice. "And you think I am choosing you? This is all an illusion." His response was a low threat. "For now." His hold tightened, propelling her into a flawless spin. "An illusion can become a truth," he whispered against her hair, "if the lie is what you truly desire." Every nerve ending screamed at her to pull away, to remember this was a charade for an audience that didn't matter. Instead, she yielded to his lead, drawn toward a warmth she hadn't known had gone cold inside her. The song changed, yet they remained, an unmoving axis in a turning world. One could feel the room holding its collective breath. Across the floor, her mother's face was a study in pure shock. Even her sister Lauren seemed for once captivated rather than critical. "And Tyler," He was a statue at the bar, his face a perfect, unreadable slate. "Your former husband is entranced," Giovanni observed, his voice a low hum. She questioned how he could be so sure. "He is watching you," Giovanni clarified, "as a man watches another unearth a treasure he himself threw away." A tendon pulsed in his jaw. Men like that are an open book. She felt a phantom need to defend him. "You don't know him." But Giovanni's words were surgically precise. "I know he left you. I know he married your cousin, and I know he is not worth the grief you carry for him." His voice was soft, yet it carried the unforgiving chill of forged metal. "Am I wrong?" The question was a physical weight between them. She had no answer. "You're conceited," she finally uttered. "I think of it as perceptive," he countered, steering her through an effortless turn. "And I am right." A sudden fire ignited in her chest. "Being right doesn't give you permission to be cruel." His reply was devastatingly simple. "No, but being honest does." After a moment, he offered a quiet confession, as if admitting a personal failing. "An instinct to fix that which is broken." "I am not broken," she hissed. "No," he agreed, his thumb now drawing slow, hypnotic circles on her skin. "You are a woman who deserves infinitely more. Allow me to be more for you, just for tonight." The song ended, swallowed by a wave of applause. He let her go with a palpable hesitation before extending his arm. "Your family will be waiting with questions." He was not wrong. As they approached their table, her cousin Sandra intercepted them, her gaze sharp with predatory interest. "Jessica, hiding this one away, were you?" she cooed. "Aren't you going to introduce us?" Jessica forced a casual tone she did not feel. "This is Giovanni Fioraldi. Giovanni, this is my cousin Sandra." The smile he returned was a masterpiece of polite emptiness. "A pleasure." He commented on the beautiful wedding, and Sandra clarified her status as a minor relation. Her eyes, however, were busy performing a silent inventory of the fabric and cut of his suit. "Are you local?" she pressed. "I live in Chicago now," he replied, his voice like silk. "Originally, I am from Naples. Business interests brought me here." His arm settled along the back of Jessica's chair, a gesture that was both a shield and a claim. "We have been together for some months now quietly. Jessica is a very private person." The lie was so perfectly formed it felt more real than the truth. Sandra could only gape, her mind visibly scrambling to recalibrate. "Some months," Sandra repeated, her doubt a heavy cloak. "You never said a word." Jessica played her part, nodding about her need for privacy, her hand shaking as she reached for her wine. Sandra's own nod was steeped in false understanding. "Of course. Well, you've certainly done well for yourself." She leaned closer, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "He's gorgeous. Where did you find him?" Before Jessica could invent a believable fiction, Giovanni spoke. "At the hospital," he said, his tone awash with earnestness. "Her fast action saved the life of my partner's son." He then turned to her, his eyes filled with a manufactured devotion so profound it stole her breath. "I asked her for coffee to thank her," he went on, "and she turned me down 3 times before she finally said yes." Sandra let out a laugh. "That sounds exactly like our Jessica." And on the evening went. A parade of curious relatives came and went, and with each one, Giovanni built their shared history from the fragments of truth she had given him. He knew every detail. He knew her daughter Lily was 5 years old and loved to draw. The man was an artist, painting a fiction that was utterly seamless. When they were at last alone, she could only manage a single awestruck sentence. "You are entirely too good at this." As the night began to thin, she found the courage to challenge him. "At lying," he replied, the corner of his mouth ticking upward. "It is a necessary talent in my line of work." A world he defined only as business. "I'm an import and export," he offered, his fingers lacing through hers. "And restaurants? The Martinellis are one of my suppliers. That is my connection here." She studied his face, hunting for the slightest tell. "Is that the entire truth?" His thumb stroked the inside of her palm. "Were you hoping for something more dangerous?" Her denial was swift and firm. "I am not looking for danger." She tried to reclaim her hand, but his hold was gentle and absolute. "This is about getting through tonight," she insisted. "This is about not being the family tragedy." His voice dropped, vibrating with a new gravity. "You are not a tragedy, Jessica. You are a woman who pulls 12-hour shifts caring for sick children and then goes home to raise your own. That is not an object of pity. That is an object of power." His stare was a physical warmth against her skin. But before she could answer, a shadow fell across their table. It was Tyler. Her ex-husband stood over them, his eyes locked on her alone. "We need to talk," he said. It was not a request. Outside. Before she could refuse, Giovanni relinquished her hand and stood. "It is no trouble. I should speak with the Martinellis anyway," he said, handing her a perfect excuse. "Take all the time you need." And then he was gone, leaving her trapped with the ghost of her former life. Tyler slid into the empty chair, the scent of his cologne, a suffocating memory. "Who is he?" he demanded, waving away any lie she might construct. "You would have told Camilla," he said, leaning forward with an old, familiar arrogance. "And Camilla tells everyone. I've already asked around." Nobody in the city's medical circles had heard of a Giovanni Fioraldi. "He's not in that world," she explained. It was a partner's son. An immense exhaustion settled deep in her bones. "Honestly, Tyler, my life is not your concern. You lost that right when you left me while I was carrying your child. That was different. I wasn't ready to be a husband, a father. But you're ready now, with Vanessa." She nodded toward his new wife, whose hand rested on her own swollen belly. "Or is that child more legitimate because she comes with the money you always wanted?" Tyler's face hardened. "Don't you dare act like you are better than us. You're the one who shows up with a stranger pretending you've moved on." And for a moment the thought was shockingly real. Perhaps she had. Giovanni was a fiction created for one evening, but the yearning for it to be real was a sudden, sharp ache. "Happy?" Tyler's laugh was a raw, grating sound. "Get serious, Jessica. You're a single mom living paycheck to paycheck. You work yourself to death and you still can't afford the best for our daughter. That man in the designer suit will be gone the second he gets a look at the real wreckage of your life." Each word was a perfectly aimed stone, striking her where she was most vulnerable. Before she could find her voice, Giovanni was there. "Is there a problem?" His voice was calm, but it had an edge that could cut glass. "No problem," Tyler said, getting to his feet. "Just talking to my ex-wife." "Then the conversation is over." Giovanni's hand found the curve of her waist. "There's a storm coming in. I'm taking Jessica home unless you have some reason to object." It was a declaration, not a query. Tyler's eyes darted between them, the desire to fight warring with the certainty that he would lose. He left without a sound. "I can find a taxi," she said into the silence. "You don't have to do this." "The rain is coming down hard. Let me." Giovanni picked up her purse. "Unless, of course, you're afraid to be alone with me." And the truth was, she should have been. Logic issued a single command: "Do not get in this car." She disobeyed. This Giovanni didn't radiate simple menace. He radiated an unnerving calm that said, "I see your chaos, and I am not moved." So she yielded with, "All right, thank you." A flawless black SUV then materialized, a driver at attention. Giovanni held her door as she sank into leather that cost more than all her possessions. He followed, closing the space with a proximity that was both respectful and absolute. Her address was given to the driver before she could form the question. He was always one step ahead, explaining, "Your cousin Sandra was quite helpful earlier. She mentioned you live near the park," a detail offered with clear satisfaction. The passage through a rain-streaked Chicago created a forced intimacy, a capsule where city lights bled into abstract art against the dark glass. To break the charged atmosphere, she ventured, "Thank you for what you did tonight." His reply was purely mechanical. Our interests were aligned. Giovanni shifted, the fleeting shadows carving his features into a mask of authority. But my offer from before was entirely real. We continue this charade for several weeks, just until your family's interest dies down and mine ends this pressure to marry. "That is an insane proposal," she shot back. "So you've said it, yet you still took my hand to dance." In the gloom, his hand then closed over hers, a swift and final gesture. "Jessica, be rational. You need a shield from your family's story, as I do from mine. The arrangement benefits us both." "By lying to everyone we care about," she countered. "No, by creating a sanctuary from their unending judgment." He squeezed her hand, a subtle application of pressure. "A few weeks is all. We engineer a quiet split, nobody is harmed, and we each return to our own lives." Reason screamed that this was a monumental error in judgment. Yet sitting there, the ghost of his hand on her back from the dance, she weighed the unthinkable. "I have a 5-year-old daughter," she said, her sole condition. "She is not part of this. This charade will never touch her world, I understand perfectly." "That's the deal. This is between adults. And if either of us wants to end it, we do so cleanly. That is obvious." With the verbal contract sealed, Giovanni produced a card from his jacket. "Consider my offer. Call me if you accept." The SUV glided to a halt before her building. He walked her through the downpour to her door, a perfect imitation of a gentleman waiting until she was safely inside. From the lobby, she saw the vehicle dissolve into the Chicago storm. The small card felt impossibly heavy in her palm, a concrete piece of a dangerous choice. She should have tossed it, erased the night, and gone back to her reality of 12-hour shifts, rising debt, and the family disappointment. Instead, she kept the card and went to her apartment, knowing she was stepping toward the edge of a catastrophic mistake. Monday started with an alarm at 6 o'clock. She rose on only 3 hours of sleep, her mind caught in a repeating loop of Saturday night. The feel of Giovanni's touch, the raw fury on Tyler's face seeing them, and the business card that felt like a burning coal in her hand. Her daughter, Lily, was awake, building a block tower and humming a soft tune. She looked up, her blue eyes a direct genetic inheritance from her loathsome ex, Tyler, and thankfully his only one, shining and innocent. "Good morning, my sweet. Did you have fun with Camilla? We baked cookies, and we watched the princess movie 3 whole times." Lily deserted her blocks for a crushing hug. "Camilla said you went to Aunt Sophia's wedding. Was it beautiful?" "Absolutely beautiful." She kissed her daughter's hair, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. "Okay, get dressed while I make some breakfast. We have to be out in 40 minutes. Her 12-hour shift at the children's hospital began at 7 a.m. sharp. She dropped Lily at kindergarten by 6:30, then battled traffic to clock in with just 3 minutes to spare. The pediatric ward was its usual symphony of chaos, the relentless beeping of monitors, the thick tension from parents, and the antiseptic smell of bleach that was now her second skin. Her phone began its incessant vibration before she had finished her morning rounds. It was a text message assault from her family, who had obviously used Sunday to deconstruct the appearance of her mystery man. Her cousin Sandra's text, "Call me urgently. I need the entire story on Giovanni." Lauren's message followed, "Mom is having a meltdown. Who is this guy?" Even her mother, who barely texted, had managed, "We need to speak about Saturday. Your father and I are very concerned." She silenced the phone and buried it in her pocket. Whatever drama she had started would have to wait. She was responsible for small, fragile lives. The morning became a blur of starting IVs, giving out medicine, and talking a 7-year-old girl through a bad asthma attack. By noon, she had almost purged Giovanni and his ridiculous offer from her thoughts. This was her reality: sick children, worn-out colleagues, and financial pressure. She was updating a patient's file when her ex, Tyler, materialized at the nurse's station. His presence here violated every rule, but Tyler always knew how to talk his way into places he didn't belong. "We have to talk," he said, blocking her path, his very presence an invasion. "Right now." "I'm at work," she said, trying to get past him. "And you aren't supposed to be here." "I told security I was visiting my daughter." His jaw was a hard, unforgiving line. The vein at his temple pulsed, his classic signal before he lost control. "Which should be my right. You always stop me from seeing her." "You never asked to see her," she hissed back, her voice low as her co-workers pretended not to listen. "And since Lily isn't a patient, that story won't survive a single phone call." Tyler leaned in, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "Who the hell is Giovanni Fioraldi? And don't insult me with that hospital donor story. I've been asking questions. No one important in Chicago's medical world has heard of the man." "Perhaps," she said, affecting an air of cool detachment, "that's because his world doesn't center on your little circle. Perhaps he doesn't live just to impress your wealthy friends." She finally slipped by him. "Now, I suggest you go before I call security." "Is he paying you?" The question landed like a punch to the stomach. She slowly turned back to him. "Is that the deal? A transaction where he gives you money to be his decoration at events?" The insult burned deeper than it should have. "Leave Tyler." "Because that would be logical. You're desperate for money. He's rich, and you were never too proud to take a handout." "I have never taken a single dollar from you or anyone that I didn't earn myself." Her hands clenched into tight fists. "I work for everything I have, for everything Lily has, so you can take your disgusting fantasy of me as some poor woman selling her time and throw it away." "Then what is he to you?" Tyler demanded. "What could he possibly see of value in you?" Something you were never able to give. Basic respect. She turned to the nurse's station. Security, please. There's an unauthorized person on this floor. Tyler left before security came, but his final look was a clear promise. This wasn't over. She shook for the rest of her shift, her hands so unsteady she needed help from another nurse to place an IV. 7 o'clock finally brought her release. She picked up Lily from her after-school program, her daughter's bright chatter a sharp, painful contrast to the storm inside her head. Every stoplight on the drive home was a moment to replay Tyler's hateful words, to think about Giovanni's card sitting like a dare in her purse, and to admit she was on the verge of a terrible choice. At 8, her best friend Camila came for their Tuesday takeout ritual. Concern carved into her expression. Jessica knew an interrogation was coming. She just moved food around her plate, waiting for her friend to be the one to finally break the silence. My phone has been under siege from your mother, Sandra, and Lauren, Camilla stated flatly. They are desperate for information about a man named Giovanni. Jessica's eyes fell to her pasta, feigning an intense focus on the dish. It's nothing. A one-time thing, just a dance at a wedding, so my family would finally see me as more than their perpetual reclamation project. A favor? A single brow on Camila's face lifted in a perfect arc of doubt. Jess, men who look like him don't do favors. What does he really want? He needed his family to stop pushing marriage, and I needed mine to stop the pity. It worked for both of us. And then the fatal crack in her story appeared. It does. Maybe. He suggested we continued the arrangement for a while, she finally admitted, just until the pressure from everyone dies down. Camila leaned away, the absolute madness of the plan finally dawning on her. This is completely insane, Jess. You see that, right? I do, she conceded, locking her gaze with her friend's. But you weren't there, Cam. You didn't feel the weight of their sympathy, or see the judgment in Tyler's eyes. For one night, I felt like I mattered. Is that so wrong? Not wrong, Camila said, her voice softening as she reached for her hand. Just dangerous. Promise me you'll be incredibly careful. If this man is trouble, you walk away. I promise. The vow was a lie the moment it was spoken. She planned to contact him as soon as Camilla was gone. Her friend stayed until 9:30, a comforting watch as Lily was settled for the night. Alone, she paced the confines of her kitchen, trapped by a fantasy she knew was paper thin. At 10:15, as she wavered, a sharp, commanding knock struck the door. It was no one she knew. Through the peephole, 2 figures stood cloaked in darkness like urban reapers, one with a vicious tattoo of a serpent coiling up his neck. Jessica Reed. The voice that came through the door was cold and carried a foreign accent. We need to discuss Giovanni Fioraldi. A primal instinct screamed at her to stay silent, to pretend no one was home. I don't know anyone with that name. One of them raised a phone, the screen illuminating a picture from the wedding, the undeniable proof of her lie. There she was, wrapped in Giovanni's arms, the photograph radiating a perfectly staged intimacy. You belong to him, the man stated without emotion. That makes you our business. I'm nothing to him, she shot back, her voice shaking. We barely know each other. She gripped her phone like a weapon. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. Go ahead, the taller man replied, entirely unfazed. We'll be gone before they arrive, but we'll be back, Jessica Reed, and we will have your cooperation. Mr. Volkov does not like to be ignored. With that, they turned, and their footsteps faded, leaving her trembling against the door, her heart hammering violently in her chest. An unknown name echoed in her mind, planting a deep and profound terror within her. In that instant, the fantasy shattered, replaced by a cold and horrifying reality. She pulled Giovanni's card from her purse, the silver lettering seeming to burn with a new and dangerous meaning. This was her out, her one chance to cut ties before his world swallowed hers whole. But staring into that abyss, she dialed. He answered on the first ring. "Jessica?" The words poured out of her in a frantic rush. Two men were here. They had photos. They mentioned a name, Volkov. They promised to come back. A heavy, calculating silence settled over the line. His voice returned, a model of unnerving calm. "Lock your door. Do not open it for anyone. I will be there in 15 minutes. Giovanni, what is happening? Who are they? I will explain everything when I arrive. Stay put, and don't leave Lily's side." The line went dead. She threw every bolt, her eyes darting to her sleeping child, so unaware of the lethal bargain her mother had just made. 14 minutes later, a new knock. Through the peephole she saw him, and next to him stood a man who looked like he was carved from stone. "This is my associate, Franco," Giovanni said as he crossed her threshold. His eyes swept her small apartment, not seeing a home but assessing a tactical position. He demanded a word-for-word account of the conversation. As she explained, Franco stood like a sentry at the window, a human shield against a threat she couldn't see. With every word she spoke, Giovanni's expression grew harder, the scar on his chin a stark white line. "The Bratva," he said finally, "a Russian outfit. They're making a play for my territory. Someone leaked the photos from the wedding. Someone told them you were mine." "How?" she whispered. "We just met." The memory of his hand on her back, their dance, now felt like a brand. The beautiful lie had been so easy to believe. "They don't care about the truth," Giovanni explained, following a rapid, low exchange with Franco in Italian. "They care about leverage. This is on me. I should have seen this coming. What do they want? To use you to get to me, to force me into a deal that would destroy me." His gaze locked on hers, full of a regret that brought no comfort. "Jessica, I'm sorry. This was never supposed to touch you." "Then let's end it," she begged. "We can tell them it's fake." "Too late," Franco's harsh voice cut in. "They've already marked you as his weakness. The truth doesn't matter anymore." Her legs gave out and she sank onto the sofa. "What do we do now?" Giovanni knelt in front of her, his intense stare demanding her attention. "I will protect you now. You and Lily. But to do that, I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" Every rational part of her brain was screaming no, to throw this man and his nightmare out of her house. But trapped by his gaze, a single wild word escaped her lips. Yes. In 30 minutes, they had 2 bags packed, while her daughter slept on, oblivious that her mother had just conscripted them both into a silent war. Camila showed up 20 minutes after the call, her face a mask of fear and grim determination, a friend who knew the shape of crisis. "This is just for a little while, right?" she whispered, gathering Lily's favorite toys. "You're not actually mixed up in this." "It was supposed to be," Jessica said, shoving clothes into a bag. "A fake relationship for a couple of weeks. Now a Russian syndicate thinks I'm some kind of bargaining chip. The Russian mob." Saying the words out loud made Camilla collapse onto the small bed. "Oh, Jess, what have you gotten into?" "I don't know." Her hands were shaking too badly to work the zipper of the bag. He says he can protect us. That's the only thing I have to hold on to. Giovanni's home was a steel and glass fortress in the sky, a Gold Coast penthouse worth more than she would earn in a decade. Franco drove them in a black SUV, taking a winding, indirect path to ensure they weren't followed. Giovanni was in another car behind them with the security detail she never knew he had, a special key called an elevator that opened into a sterile, perfect apartment overlooking the vast darkness of the lake. The paintings on the walls were real. The furniture looked too expensive to sit on. It was a beautiful, cold world, the complete opposite of the warm apartment she had fled. The guest rooms are upstairs, Giovanni said, nodding toward a floating staircase. There are 3. Take your pick. Camilla, there's a room for you too. I have to stay here? Her friend asked, her eyes wide with shock. Yes, Giovanni's answer was absolute and final. Until we can neutralize this. Anyone close to Jessica is a liability now. That means you. How long will that be? She asked, her knuckles white on Lily's bag. Days? Weeks? She started to argue, trying to reach for the normal pieces of her life, like her job and her classes, but Giovanni cut her off gently. A favor had been called in. She was now on an official paid emergency leave for the next 2 weeks. Lily's school had been told of a family emergency and a private tutor was being sent. Jessica was furious. He had no right, but his answer was unshakable. His right came from keeping them alive. His amber gaze pinned her in place. This was his world, and these were his rules. And his first rule was that civilians did not get caught in his crossfire. A sleepy noise from Lily, curled against her mother's shoulder, was all it took to change the entire atmosphere. Giovanni's hard expression softened. He suggested they get the child to bed, that their fight could wait for the morning. The bedroom he led them to was immense, easily double the size of her entire old living room, with the vast bed dressed in impossibly soft sheets. The attached bathroom had a shower the size of a closet and a deep soaking tub. As Jessica laid her down, Lily's 5-year-old eyes blinked open, confused by the new grand space. "Where are we?" she murmured. "At a friend's house, baby," Jessica lied. "It's a sleepover." She gently smoothed a wisp of hair from Lily's brow. "Go back to sleep," she whispered. The child was gone again in an instant, her small hand clutching a stuffed bunny. Giovanni still stood in the doorway, his face impossible to read. "She's beautiful," he said, his voice low. "She has your eyes." The comment felt like a small, sharp jab. "She has her father's everything else," Jessica clipped back, pulling up the comforter. "Which is probably for the best." Giovanni stepped into the room, moving with the unnerving silence of a large predator, his eyes fixed on Lily with an intense curiosity rarely seen in men who did not have children. "How old is she?" he asked. 5, Jessica said, her hand flattening the bedclothes. "She'll be 6 in March. A little genius who loves reading, is obsessed with dinosaurs, and asks things I can't explain." His curiosity seemed authentic. "What things?" The stark reality came tumbling out. Like why her father is never here, or why she's the only child with one parent instead of 2. The confession hung between them, weighted with old pain. Giovanni's jaw set. "He's a fool." "He's a great many things," she allowed. "Fool is the mildest of them." Sudden, silent alliance took shape as they watched over the girl. They stood a quiet vigil over her daughter, not as strangers bound by circumstance, but as a shared protective shield. "I should let you get some rest," Giovanni said at last, moving toward the door. The intercom is there if you need me." As he was about to leave, she spoke his name. "Giovanni." "Thank you." The reason for her gratitude was still unclear, rooted only in the profound safety she felt. His expression shifted. "I will always keep her safe, Jessica. Both of you. You have my word." With that promise, the next 3 days became a strange departure from her known life. On Wednesday morning, Jessica woke to Lily already charting the penthouse with a child's unique and focused curiosity. In the kitchen, Camilla was making breakfast as Giovanni's voice carried from his office, a stream of quick Italian that was both elegant and dangerous. At 10 o'clock, a pediatrician came for Lily's private checkup. The doctor was thorough, but Giovanni appeared, grilling him with questions on immunizations and a cold Jessica had mentioned only in passing. "You remembered I said she had a cold?" Jessica questioned after the doctor left. "You told me she missed school 2 weeks ago," he replied matter-of-factly, handing Lily a tablet. "I listened, Jessica." A tutor, Mrs. Patel, came on Thursday and instantly charmed Lily. Giovanni watched for a while before abruptly sitting down for a drawing lesson, rendering a startlingly good horse and showing Lily how to add shading. "My mother made me take art lessons," he clarified, his large hand guiding Lily's smaller one. "She believed beauty and business were connected." From the kitchen, Jessica and Camilla witnessed the unbelievable scene. They saw him engage the child on her own terms, his praise genuine and his patience boundless. "He's good with her," Camilla murmured, "terrifyingly good." That truth was more frightening to Jessica than any gangster because Lily was already asking when Mr. Giovanni would have them back. She had started drawing figures of a tall man with dark hair beside them, unconsciously filling a father-shaped void Jessica had ignored for 5 years. The tension from the wedding had flared into a blaze inside the penthouse. Giovanni's presence was constant and powerful, the precision of his gestures, the cedar scent that followed him, the command in his voice. Every night they ate as a bizarre, temporary family with Giovanni hanging on every word Lily spoke. Once Lily was in bed, they would talk on the terrace, with the city glowing far below, cautiously navigating around the issue that held them there. He talked about his mother, Sophia, lost to cancer when he was 33. He described a slow, agonizing goodbye and the oath she'd made him swear to find a woman who would defy him, not one who would simply accept his shadows. "She would have liked you," he murmured on the third night, his voice deep and certain. "My mother had respect for women with their own power," he elaborated. "She started from nothing, married my father at 19, and built her own world." Jessica finally asked the question that had been hanging in the air. "And what world is that exactly?" Giovanni paused, taking a slow drink of wine. Publicly, he was a restaurateur, owner of 4 famous Italian eateries. That was the visible kingdom. Underneath was the shadow world his father had built, a violent legacy he was now sworn to protect. "You're in the Mafia," she said, putting the raw truth between them. A faint smile played on his lips. "I prefer the term a civic organization with flexible morals. But yes, my family has run Chicago's Underworld for 3 generations." The restaurants were a legitimate face for a web of hidden enterprises. And the Russians? "They want those shadows," he stated, his voice turning to steel. They were moving in, using brute force where his father would have made a deal. "I'm trying for diplomacy. They're taking it as weakness." On Friday afternoon, Franco strode into the study, his face a mask of grim certainty. "We found the leak," he said without preamble. the source of the pictures, the one who told the Bratva about Jessica. Giovanni stood, his body taut with restrained energy. Who? Franco's answer hit with the impact of a physical strike. Her cousin, David Reed. He's been feeding information to the Russians for 6 months. He saw the wedding pictures online and saw a way to make money. The floor seemed to fall away from Jessica. David, my cousin. Franco confirmed the betrayal. David told the Bratva the marriage was fake, but their leader, Dmitry Volkov, still saw her as a point of pressure. Where is he now? Giovanni's voice was devoid of emotion, pure ice. This was the problem. The Russians had him, a guarantee against retaliation. If Giovanni moved against them, they would kill David just to prove a point. The room started to spin. It was her reckless, debt-plagued cousin David who sold out his family to mobsters to clear his gambling debts. We can't just leave him, she heard herself say. He's an idiot, but he's family. Giovanni's expression was carved from granite. He put you and Lily at risk. Her eyes met his. Family isn't always about loyalty, Giovanni. Or common sense, she shot back. What would your mother do? The question hit its mark. His jaw tightened before he told Franco, set up a meeting with Volkov. I'll listen to his terms. Franco warned him, it's a trap. I know, Giovanni replied, his gaze locked on her. But it seems I picked a bad time to grow a conscience. They pulled up to a warehouse in Chicago's industrial district, the smell of the lake cutting through the car's climate control. The Friday night air felt cool, the clouds hanging low with rain that wouldn't fall. Next to her, Giovanni was a contradiction, her protector and the cause of her deepest fear. You can wait here, he offered for the 3rd time. Franco and I can handle this. I was the asset, she countered. I'll be part of the negotiation. A text from Camilla confirmed Lily was down, asking when she'd be back. Home. A word she now tied to his penthouse after only 5 days. You said she would want them to see I was more than just a piece in their game, Jessica reminded him. My mother, he said, his hand covering hers, would have quite a lot to say, mostly using words you shouldn't hear. I lived in a hospital for 3 years, she answered. My threshold is high. The warehouse loomed out of the darkness, a rusted concrete monster. 2 black cars were parked out front, their occupants leaning on them with the relaxed threat of seasoned killers. Franco got out first, his eyes scanning the area with practiced skill before he gave the all-clear. They walked into air that smelled of rust and dampness. A silent Russian waved them inside, into a scene straight from a movie. It was a cavernous space filled with shipping crates and lit by dim, hazy lights. In the middle was a folding table where 2 men were waiting. She knew the younger one, the thug from Tuesday. The older man had to be Dmitry Volkov. He looked to be in his late 50s, his gray hair in a sharp military cut, his eyes cold from a life of causing pain. Mr. Fioraldi, Volkov's English was accented and sharp, like broken glass. You brought the woman, a very American move. Jessica chose to be here, Giovanni replied, pulling a chair out for her. This involves her. Only because you let it, Volkov shot back, his eyes sizing her up. A lovely prize. We know this marriage was just for show. How we began doesn't matter, Jessica cut in, speaking before Giovanni could. Your leverage is me, and that gives me a seat at this table. The younger man started to laugh, but Volkov cut him off with a look. Bold, the older man remarked. Your cousin David mentioned your pride. It's why you wouldn't give him money. His voice grew colder. "Do you know where David is, Jessica Reed? Franco said you have him." "Correct. In a cellar nearby. He owes $30,000. He gave us information about you to pay his debt." Volkov held out a phone, its screen glowing. A picture of happiness. The image showed them in mid-dance, their shared look so genuine, so stripped of all artifice, it felt like a ghost of a moment that never was. "David struck a deal." Giovanni's voice was quiet, yet sharp as forged steel. "His debt is his to bear. Jessica, on the other hand, is our business." The phone vanished from sight. "That makes her leverage, so let's talk terms. You sign over your 3 downtown blocks. For that, you get David back, and the nurse becomes irrelevant to us." "No." The single word slipped from her, and both mob bosses turned to her, their faces etched with pure disbelief. "You don't get to threaten a person's family and then treat this like a business deal." "Jessica," Giovanni started. "No." Adrenaline, raw and absolute, had burned away her fear, pushing her to her feet. "Threaten him? Fine. That's the world you live in. But you came into my house. You brought that terror to the room where my 5-year-old daughter sleeps. You have my idiot cousin who doesn't deserve whatever it is you do in your basement. What kind of man makes war on a child's bedroom? What kingdom is built on terrorizing women?" Her question echoed in the heavy air. "You think shame works on me?" Volkov's voice was devoid of emotion, but a lethal gleam ignited in his eyes. "We deal in results, Miss Reed, not feelings." "Then here's your result," she declared, the lie a bitter metallic taste in her mouth. "I am done being afraid of you. You thought using me would destroy him. You only showed me who you are, and I will watch this entire world burn before you get anything from my fear." Instantly, Giovanni was standing, a living shield between her and the threat. He confirmed, "I stand by every word Jessica said, but hear this." He laid out a new offer, conceding the 3 blocks of property. The condition: the Bratva would enter a treaty that forbade touching family, outlawed abductions, and established zones where children live as off-limits. Volkov hesitated, his eyes scanning for the trick. Then Giovanni played his final card. "I'm giving you real estate I was already planning to unload. The city is rezoning it next month, and its value will drop to nothing." Giovanni's calm was a fortress. "Take them. The financial black hole they become will be your problem. In exchange, we draw a line. You stay on your side, we stay on ours. And all non-combatants are now and forever out of bounds." A tense silence passed before Volkov's eyes found Jessica again. "She has spirit. Crazy, but spirit." He rose. "Done. 3 blocks, 1 treaty, and civilians are untouchable." He offered his hand. "And Mr. Fioraldi, a piece of free advice. If this marriage started as a fabrication, you should seriously think about making it real. A woman who speaks truth to power like that is a rare commodity. My own wife was a woman like that, and I was smart enough to never let her go." Their handshake was curt, the professional end to a grim negotiation. David's release was set for the hour, dropped at a hospital with a 6-month restraining order. The property transfer would be done by the weekend. They stepped from the warehouse into a light misting rain. The second she reached the SUV, however, her strength collapsed, the adrenaline leaving her system in a brutal crash. Giovanni caught her, guiding her into the seat. "That was either the bravest or the most idiotic thing I have ever seen." From the driver's seat, Franco's voice floated back as they pulled away. "I'm still not sure which one." Both, she whispered, her voice thin. It was definitely both. Giovanni shifted to look at her. You stood up to Dmitry Volkov. Do you understand what that means? That you spoke to him like that and are still breathing? Honestly, breathing wasn't my top priority, she admitted, her hands shaking. All I could see was Lily, safe in your house, and David, in that place. I was just tired of powerful men deciding who is safe and who gets sacrificed. I'm a pediatric nurse, Giovanni. My whole life is about protecting children. And just like that, he kissed her. The terror vanished as his mouth found hers, a searing, desperate kiss filled with unspoken want. He cradled her face with one hand, his thumb tracing her cheek, while the other arm pulled her across the leather seat until no space remained between them. She met his intensity with her own, pouring 5 days of suffocating fear and a sliver of hope into their connection. He moved with a confident grace, and her body responded on instinct, utterly unaware of Franco, whose eyes were now glued firmly to the road ahead. When they broke apart for breath, he pressed his forehead to hers. He admitted he had wanted this since the moment her eyes met his, from table 12, and she agreed to dance. The feeling deepened when she stood in his house with her daughter, trusting him with a life she protected from the world. It was sealed when she faced down a Russian mob boss in a grimy warehouse, vowing that threats against the city's children would fail. His city, she had insisted. He saw it differently. She could stand in the epicenter of his inferno and not get burned. His thumb grazed her lip as he declared their pretense was officially finished. The act had dissolved somewhere between Saturday and now, a fact she couldn't argue. A feeling had been growing as he drew with Lily, spoke of his mother, and as she found a strange sense of peace in his voice on the terrace after 5 years. This, she breathed, was a beautiful disaster. The best things are, he replied, his lips touching hers once more, this time with the softness of a promise instead of the heat of a conquest. He asked her to remain, not for protection or to honor a deal, but to see where this raw, new thing between them might lead. The SUV's gentle stop outside the penthouse, accented by Franco's soft cough, broke the spell, a reminder of the sleeping 5-year-old 1 floor above. She stated the obvious risk. Her daughter would be caught in the crossfire if their world imploded. His answer was one of absolute authority. They simply wouldn't let it implode. Helping her from the vehicle, Giovanni detailed their new arrangement. One day, one choice at a time, starting with admitting that tonight had changed it all. The elevator climbed in charged silence. At the apartment door, Camilla's single, knowing look at Jessica's expression said she understood everything without needing to ask a thing. When Camilla left with Franco, Jessica and Giovanni stood alone near midnight in the vast living room, the gravity of their new agreement settling around them. Her urge to check on Lily was a reflex, a retreat to the only uncomplicated part of her world. He let her go, but not before clarifying the nature of his offer. This wasn't just a temporary shelter, but a place she could truly call home. In her room, Lily slept peacefully, oblivious to the fact her mother had just bargained with gangsters and then kissed a man who made her forget all the reasons she should run. Jessica watched the gentle rise and fall of her chest. This amazing child she had with a man who deserved nothing. She now had to wonder if she had the strength to gamble 2 hearts on a man who just might deserve everything. Downstairs, Giovanni represented a promise. Upstairs, her daughter was a reality. On the staircase connecting them, she faced a realization more frightening than any Russian gunman. She was falling for Giovanni Fioraldi, and for the first time since Tyler walked out, she decided to let herself fall and just see where she landed. The earliest light of Sunday morning streamed into the penthouse, waking her before the alarm. Her thoughts were a constant replay of Friday night. The kiss, the warehouse, the vacant stare of Dmitry Volkov, and the certainty in Giovanni's voice when he said their act was over. She found him in the kitchen, already dressed before 8 o'clock, making coffee. With Lily still sound asleep, a unique quiet existed between them. A talk about what came next was overdue, he said, handing her a mug. Her own mind had been on the same track. Her fingers clutched the ceramic's warmth as she admitted their pact was supposed to be a short-term lie. A few weeks of theater until their families backed down. Now, everything had become a complicated truth. Giovanni rested against the counter, his sharp amber eyes on her. He passed on Franco's morning report. David was out of the hospital, banned from Chicago for 6 months. The Bratva problem was handled, the peace was holding. His words meant that she and Lily were finally free to go back to their old life. The words should have felt like freedom. Instead, they sounded like a door slamming shut. She fought to keep her voice steady. The threat was neutralized, the deal finished. She murmured her thanks, the goodbye hanging unspoken between them. That was one option, Giovanni agreed, placing his mug down. Then he offered a second. Franco could engineer a total reset, perfect new identities, a new city, an entirely new existence. He could give her and Lily complete security, putting them somewhere Tyler or his world could never touch. Financial freedom, a fresh start, everything she could ever need. He was offering to make them disappear. The thought hit her like a shock of cold water, a way out of his life for good. This choice, he clarified, was born of no debt, bound by no obligation. His face was a stoic, unreadable slate. He had dragged her into this maelstrom. A clean escape was the only decent thing he could provide. Before words could form on her lips, the soft patter of feet on the stairs broke the stillness. Lily materialized in her pajamas, hair a delightful tangle, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "Good morning, Mommy. Good morning, Mr. Giovanni." She hoisted herself onto a stool. "Are we having pancakes? Mr. Giovanni makes the very best ones." "That I can do," Giovanni affirmed, already moving for the ingredients. "Will it be chocolate chip or blueberry?" "Both," Lily chirped, her small body vibrating with glee. "Mom, can't we stay here always? I love it here." She then declared that Mr. Giovanni was going to teach her how to sketch buildings later. Jessica felt something inside her splinter. "Sweetheart, we're Mr. Giovanni's guests. We can't just live with him forever." "But why?" she countered, her eyes darting between them with the perfect logic of a 5-year-old. "He's got lots of extra rooms. And you don't mind, right, Mr. Giovanni?" His gaze locked with Jessica's above the girl's head. "Not in the slightest." "Lily, my love, go wash your hands for breakfast," Jessica murmured. As the child skipped away, the two adults were once again adrift in silence. "She's becoming attached to you," Jessica said, her voice barely a whisper. It was the very thing she had dreaded. If they left, the girl would have questions with no simple answers. "Then do not leave," Giovanni offered, the whisk in his hand moving with a fluid, hypnotic motion. "Stay. Let us see what this might be without the pretense of protection. Simply two people exploring a possible future. You run a criminal enterprise, Giovanni. You make deals with killers. Your rivals could use me and Lily for leverage." Her knuckles were white where she gripped her mug. How could any life be built upon such a violent foundation? He argued that his world was not some separate reality. That is a part of me. But so is the man making pancakes for your daughter, the one who wants to teach her architectural drawing. He was a living paradox, a man who organized 3 nights of constant surveillance for her, but would burn down half of Chicago to keep her safe. And now he flipped pancakes, asking her, in essence, to accept him in his entirety, the guardian and the gangster. He wasn't asking her to love the monster, only to acknowledge that the monster was real. Before she could answer, Lily was back, chattering about her art lesson and demanding more chocolate chips. The scene radiated a surreal normalcy, a portrait of a family that never was. This quiet domesticity was more terrifying than any gunfight. It felt too real, too right for a bond only days old. So, after breakfast, she revealed a plan of her own. She would return to her job at the hospital the next day. Giovanni's easy manner vanished. He pronounced the idea dangerously foolish. The truce with the syndicate was fragile, the landscape unstable. She cut him off, stating it was a necessity. She had to recover a piece of her own life, to prove she wasn't just some ward living in his tower. For them to have any chance, she needed to be her own person. He studied her for a long, silent moment before giving his terms. A private driver and a security team stationed at the hospital. That part was not for debate. Fine, she agreed, learning the art of the concession, but his people had to stay invisible. She would not have guards stalking the halls of a pediatric ward. Monday arrived with the rhythm of a life she once knew. She left Lily at kindergarten with a parting kiss and went to Lurie Children's for her first shift in over a week. The hospital was the same managed pandemonium she remembered. Scared kids, tense parents, the sterile perfume and steady beeps that were a strange kind of home. Her supervisor met her by the entrance. "Jessica, how wonderful to have you back. Is your family situation all sorted out?" "It is," she replied, thanking her for being so accommodating. "Of course," her supervisor said. "And you will not believe this. One of our main benefactors called about you specifically. A profoundly generous man. He wanted to make certain your job was secure." She gave Jessica a knowing, conspiratorial smile. "Your new man must be somebody important." Jessica let the assumption stand. It was far less complicated than the truth. The hours unfolded in a familiar pattern, checking IV drips, administering medications, soothing a 3-year-old with pneumonia. Sometime after 2 p.m, she was paged for a long-term case. 7-year-old Marcus was in his 8th brutal month of fighting leukemia. He was there for another chemotherapy session, worn down, but with his spirit intact. Nurse Jessica, his face lit up when she walked in. "You came back. I missed you." "I missed you too, champ." She checked his vitals, recording the data. "How are you holding up?" "Tired," he confessed. "But my mom says I'm a warrior." The child's fingers twisted at the hospital sheets, a small motion betraying a vast internal war. Marcus posed a question with a weight beyond his years. He asked if happy endings existed outside of storybooks. The question landed, heavy and profound. Sitting on the edge of his bed, she told him that happiness was a reward for those who were brave. He said his mother told him the same thing about courage. Then, with the sharp insight of a 7-year-old, he turned the lesson back on her, asking if she was being brave too. The patient had become the priest. "Yes, Marcus," she whispered, "I am." His logic was therefore simple. "Then you will get your happy ending, just like me." An alliance was sealed between them. Jessica left his room with more than just tears. She left with a renewed resolve. She measured Marcus's battle for each single breath against her own fear of reaching for a complicated joy. Her day ended at 7. In the concrete tomb of the parking structure, she texted Giovanni that she was leaving. The October air bit at her skin, her breath fogging in the dim light. High above, the unblinking eyes of surveillance cameras were the only witnesses to what would happen in the 30 seconds before a response could be mounted. Tyler stepped out from the shadows between the cars. His voice was a razor's edge, tight with a contained fury. As he said they needed to talk, he was there to interrogate her about her new life, armed with information he had dug up. Tyler, not now, she insisted, walking toward her car. Go home to your pregnant wife. His fingers clamped around her arm, not with violence, but with an absolute finality, stopping her retreat. He listed his findings. Giovanni Fioraldi, owner of 4 Italian bistros and a person of interest in several major financial probes in Chicago. Did you know? He asked. Or did Giovanni's money make your morals negotiable? Let go of me, she ordered, yanking her arm free. My life is none of your business. It is, he shot back. When my daughter is involved with a criminal. He moved closer, playing his final card. She is still my daughter. He would not allow Lily to be drawn into that world. Your daughter. The question ignited a fire she had smothered for 5 years. She recited a litany of his desertion, leaving when she was pregnant, marrying her cousin, his utter absence from Lily's life, both financially and emotionally. This sudden act of paternal concern was a pathetic mask for his own resentment. Tyler's reply was a distorted reflection of her own words, casting him as the one saving her from her mistakes. His face became a mask of stone. He then laid out his plan. He would go to the police about Fioraldi, and when the man was arrested, he would file for custody, painting her as a mother who put her own child in harm's way. The blaze of her fury was snuffed out by a sudden, icy fear. You wouldn't dare! His smirk was the only reply he needed. End it with him, Jess, or you lose her. A new voice, as sharp and cold as breaking glass, cut through the air. That will not be a problem. Giovanni emerged from the darkness near the elevator, his man Franco just behind him. They moved like predators closing a carefully set trap. The color vanished from Tyler's face as he threatened to summon security. I would strongly encourage that, Giovanni said, his stance casual, but his eyes like chips of ice. He would love to explain to them why Tyler was threatening his girlfriend. Tyler's denial, I never touched her, was met with a calm, lethal point about the cameras. Franco gave a slight inclination of his head toward a blinking red light on a camera above them. The city of Chicago, Giovanni remarked, takes matters of assault very seriously, especially when it involves an obsessed ex-husband. Tyler's confidence finally shattered, his voice shaking. This is not a threat, Giovanni explained, still advancing. It is a lesson in cause and effect. At the mention of his name, Franco presented an envelope. Inside was a detailed invoice for unpaid child support, a 5-year paper trail of his abandonment. The demand was for roughly $43,000, accompanied by a restraining order that would be filed if he ever bothered Jessica again. Tyler snatched the papers, stammering that he hadn't agreed to any child support. You left before she had the chance to file, Giovanni said, his voice now devoid of all warmth. Abandoning your family doesn't erase your legal obligations. His lawyers, he promised, were unyielding and ready for a long, expensive fight. He then posed a question of sheer logistics. Tyler could not possibly win a battle of resources against a superior legal force. Cornered, Tyler asked if he was being threatened with a lawsuit. "Please do," Giovanni urged, his smile chilling. He openly invited Tyler to let a judge hear the story of a deadbeat father who left his pregnant girlfriend to marry her cousin. "Let a judge decide which parent is wanting," Giovanni proposes. Then another option emerges, his tone now a velvet-sheathed threat. Tyler can abandon this charade of fatherhood, this 5-year delayed concern, and documents become confetti. The incident will never have happened. A heavy quiet presses down in the garage as Tyler considers his choices, eyes darting between the papers, the woman, and the architect of his defeat. "Fine," he snarls, throwing the envelope down. "Take her." He leaves on a wave of vitriol. Giovanni stands like marble, a monument to his own authority, waiting until Tyler's engine fades. Then he turns to Jessica. "Are you all right?" She is not. A tremor of adrenaline still runs through her. Then it hits her, the research, the legal groundwork, all of it was a preventative strike. When is all she can ask. The instant he became a liability, Giovanni says, collecting the envelope. His method, he clarifies, is not to respond to danger, but to excise it before it touches what is his. The next question escapes her, sharper than she meant. What if he is the danger? What if his life endangers Lily? His eyes find hers as he makes a grave promise. He would neutralize himself too, disappearing from their world if necessary. The decision, he stresses, is entirely hers. Franco slips away silently to the vehicle. In the frigid silence that remains, Jessica weighs her want against the peril. Her murmured choice, "Take me home, your home," embraces the contradiction. He extends an arm, and her acceptance of it cements a decision more frightening than Tyler's menace. The next 2 weeks blur into a construction of a new life over the ruins of the old. She moves into his penthouse but keeps her own flat, a haven that separates her daughter's world from the shadows of his. Giovanni, for his part, navigates the beautiful disarray of life with a 5-year-old effortlessly. He perfects the nightly rite of 3 stories and the craft of hiding greens in her food. He sits through a parent-teacher meeting on a comically small chair as Mrs. Rodriguez extols Lily's virtues. The comment about 2 such dedicated parents lingers between them unaddressed. Camila also finds her place in this new arrangement. Her after-school duties continue, with transport provided by a discreet man named Anthony, who becomes another fixture in their strange new family, shuttling them between the penthouse and her apartment for a dose of the familiar. "This is unreal," Camila notes one afternoon while Lily sketches. "A fortnight ago, you were barely making it. Now you live in a sky-high apartment with bodyguards." Jessica pours tea, a familiar motion, and wonders if this joy makes her wicked. "It makes you human," Camila says, but with a warning. Joy that comes this quickly can disappear just as fast. Jessica's mother swings daily between thrilled by her daughter's new life and horrified by the darkness that comes with it. Lauren's backing, in contrast, is total. She invites them to her 32nd birthday dinner on Saturday at Giovanni's latest establishment. The goal, she says, is to meet the man who brought the light back to her sister's eyes, not just a mystery figure from a wedding. Saturday blows in with a frigid gust, a taste of winter ahead. Jessica carefully chooses a deep green dress, a gift from him she'd hesitated to accept. Lily is in wine-colored velvet, her hair in intricate braids that took nearly an hour. "Beautiful," Giovanni murmurs, his tone deep as they appear. He wears a charcoal gray suit with an easy power. The unbuttoned collar, a deliberate mix of sophistication and threat. They match. Lily, bubbling with excitement, asks, "Mr. Giovanni, are we going to your place with the famous breadsticks?" "Another one," he replies, crouching to her level. "This one is for Northern Italian food, but I have asked the chef to make some special breadsticks just for you." Fioraldi's River North commands a corner, its large windows looking out onto the Chicago River. A warm glow spills onto the pavement, and from within, one can hear the low murmur of diners. For the family event, Giovanni has reserved a private room, shielding them from the main dining area. Lauren and Daniel, her husband, are the first to arrive. Her sister radiates her usual style, her dark hair a luxury that probably costs more than Jess's weekly groceries. But her hug is completely genuine. "Happy birthday," Jess says, handing over a first edition of a beloved childhood book from an old book dealer. "Jess," Lauren whispers, revealing it. "This must have cost a fortune." "Not really. I know someone," Jess answers, smiling. "All that matters is that you love it." Daniel's handshake with Giovanni is as firm as a surgeon's, the grip of someone accustomed to holding lives in his hands. It's good to finally put a face to the name. Lauren's been very curious. "She's earned that right," Giovanni returns, ever poised. "I would be just as wary if a man appeared in my sister's life." Her parents arrive next. Her father looks trapped inside a suit he loathes. Her mother's eyes instantly start cataloging the room, taking in every element. They met Giovanni briefly at Sophia's wedding, but this is heavier. This is an official inspection of his worth. "Mr. and Mrs. Reed," he says, his charisma practiced and smooth. "Thank you for coming to celebrate Lauren." "It's your establishment," her mother notes, taking his offered hand. "We should be the ones thanking you." Sophia and her husband arrive fashionably late, glowing like recent newlyweds. Vanessa comes last. At 8 months along, her pregnancy defines her shape. She is also obviously alone. Tyler's non-appearance leaves a hole in the atmosphere, and seeing her ties a knot in Jess's gut. "Jessica," she says softly, a quick, stiff kiss on the cheek. "You look good." "So do you," Jess lies. The woman seems drained, exhausted in a way that goes beyond her condition. "How are you feeling?" "Huge, miserable. I just want this baby out," she answers, a hand on her stomach. Tyler sends his apologies. "A work meeting?" The lie is so thin it's see-through. Tyler is clearly dodging a scene with Giovanni and Jess. Part of her is glad. Another part wants him here to see everything he lost. Dinner is a magnificent production, every plate a masterpiece. Giovanni's orders to the chef were to hold nothing back, and they obeyed. Once the early stiffness fades, talk begins to flow. Her quiet father is soon deep in conversation with Giovanni about buildings. Lauren and Daniel question him on the hospitality business. Even her mother seems pleased as Giovanni keeps their wine full and provides a special mocktail for Lily in a grown-up glass. But what truly wins over her family is seeing Giovanni with Lily. The little girl, sleepy after her dinner, leans on him on the seat. He naturally puts an arm around her, never pausing his talk with her father as he smooths her hair. Its emotion so automatic it looks practiced. "He's amazing with her," Lauren whispers to Jess on a trip to the ladies' room. "I never would have guessed." "Me neither," Jess admits to her own image in the glass. "But it's true, so patient. He makes her feel important because she is important. To him." Lauren finds her gaze in the reflection. "Jess, I've worried about you for so long. watching you run yourself ragged, bringing up Lily by yourself, turning down every bit of help. But now, something's different. You seem lighter, like you're finally letting yourself be happy. I'm trying. Jess manages, her throat tight. Is that okay? Can I be happy with someone like him? Someone like him? Lauren turns, facing her fully. You mean a successful man who respects you, who clearly adores your child, who looked at our crazy family and decided you were worth it? She takes Jess by the shoulders. Jess, he isn't the problem. Tyler was. Mom's impossible expectations were. You thinking you didn't deserve more was the problem. They get back just as a massive birthday tiramisu arrives, making Lily's eyes go round. Lauren blows out her candles, surrounded by family, and for the first time in 5 years, Jess feels like she belongs. Vanessa leaves right after dessert, claiming she's tired. But she stops by Jessica's seat on her way out. I'm happy for you, she murmurs. I really am. I thought I was getting what you wanted, but maybe you dodged a bullet. Tyler's not. She trails off, hand pressed to her side. He isn't who I thought he was. Vanessa. Don't, she cuts her off with a raised hand. I chose my path. You chose yours. I just wanted to say that I see now you got the better deal. Her gaze drifts to Giovanni, his hands patiently folding a napkin into a swan for Lily. Hold on to that one. A man like that is rare. She was gone before Jess could find a single word, leaving a silence filled with questions and an odd warmth. As the night wound down, her parents lavished Giovanni with thanks, her father insisting on another dinner. Sophia and her husband proposed a double date. Lauren's hug was fierce, her whispered endorsement absolute. They drove through Chicago's glittering darkness, Lily a silent, dreaming weight in her car seat. In the car's quiet dark, Giovanni's hand found hers, fingers weaving together. Your family likes me, he said, a note of pure wonder in his voice. They are absolutely smitten with you. There's a difference, she replied, her grip tightening on his. You won them over, even my mother, a task I thought impossible. I had an inside agent, he admitted, with a nod toward Lily. It's hard to dislike a man your daughter has already adopted. Is that what happened? She told your mother I taught her to draw buildings, and now she wants to be an architect. His voice held the familiar warmth she was beginning to crave. Then she announced I was her favorite grown-up after you and Camilla. And just like that, another wall around her heart crumbled. Giovanni, I know what you're thinking, that we need to be careful, that she's getting too attached, that she'll be shattered if this all falls apart. He looked at her as a streetlight washed over them. But Jessica, what if it doesn't? What if this is just how 3 people build a real family? She had no answer to that. But later, watching him carry a sleeping Lily to her room and tuck her in with the ease of long practice, she started to wonder if they were building something that could actually last. That night, with the penthouse still and Lily deep in sleep, Giovanni found her on the terrace. Thank you, he murmured, his arm circling her from behind, for letting me in, for trusting me with her, for trying this when nothing about it made sense, for giving me no other choice. She leaned back into his hold. For the last 2 weeks, for tonight, for every second, you make me think that fairy tale garbage might be real if you're just brave enough to want it. They stood there, watching the city's reflection dance on the water, and for the first time, she let herself imagine a future that wasn't just a temporary arrangement. where the man holding her wasn't a fling, but the one she was already lost to. Where her child would have a father who chose her, not one who ran. 2 weeks. That was all it had been since the warehouse, since Giovanni decided their false arrangement would become something true. But time means nothing when a thing feels this right. When coming home means walking into a space where a man who thinks you are everything is waiting, and your daughter sleeps soundly upstairs, finally safe. Maybe Camilla was right. A happiness this intense, this sudden, could probably disappear just as fast. But that night, wrapped in Giovanni's arms under the Chicago sky, she decided it was a risk worth taking, because some things and some people are worth the fight. And Giovanni Fioraldi, with his dangerous world and gentle hands, who loved her child like his own, was a bet she was ready to make. There was a bite to that Saturday night air, a warning of the Chicago winter closing in. 3 weeks had vanished since Sophia's wedding, a time that felt like both a lifetime and a heartbeat. Giovanni had insisted on dinner at his Gold Coast flagship, Fioraldi's on Astor, for what he cryptically called new beginnings. I was learning that his version of formal meant booking the entire second story of his most lauded restaurant, a place with a Michelin star, a 6-month wait list, and a clientele of the city's elite. Shutting down a whole floor was not standard procedure, she had argued when he first explained the plan. "I need privacy," was his only response, his face a mask that hid his true motives. And so she found herself in their penthouse, buttoning Lily into a crimson velvet dress, trying to calm the storm inside her own ribs. The evening was heavy with a vast, unspoken meaning, a weight she couldn't yet name. "Mom, you're messing up my hair," Lily complained, squirming from her mother's unsteady fingers. "Mr. Giovanni gave me a very important job, and I have to look perfect." "An important job?" She smoothed the girl's collar. "It's a secret," the child breathed, her eyes shining with the pure excitement of a 5-year-old guarding a sacred trust. "A very good one. The best secret ever." At that moment, Giovanni appeared in the doorway, a vision of tailored perfection in a dark charcoal suit that screamed of quiet wealth. His amber eyes moved over them, warm with an open admiration. "My 2 favorite girls, looking absolutely beautiful." He dropped to one knee, meeting Lily's gaze. "Are you ready for your special mission tonight?" "Yes," she chirped. "I practiced all week like you said." "Practiced what?" Jessica's eyes darted between them, a small seed of unease taking root. "You'll see," Giovanni said, rising and offering his arm. "Shall we?" When they arrived, the restaurant was a theater of light, its glow spilling onto tables dressed in stark white linen and crystal that shattered the light into stars. The second floor, though, their private stage for the night, was completely transformed. Twinkling lights were woven through raw brick walls, with candles flickering from every surface. In the center stood one long table, set for 15, a name scripted in looping, elegant calligraphy at each place. Her family was already there. Her parents stood by the windows, her father pointing at the Chicago skyline while her mother watched with a rare, placid smile. Lauren and Daniel chatted with Sophia and her new husband. Even a very pregnant Vanessa had come, looking tired, but there, Jessica. Sophia caught her in an immediate, crushing hug, radiating the pure joy of a new bride. "I'm so glad you're here. Giovanni said tonight was really important." "Honestly, I have no clue what this is about," she admitted. "That's because you're famously terrible with surprises," Lauren cut in, kissing her cheek. Just go with it and have fun. Knowing him, it's going to be big. Then, impossibly, Camilla was walking out from the kitchen. You didn't think I would miss this, did you? She asked, pulling her into a tight embrace. Giovanni called me 3 days ago and basically ordered me to be here. I feel like the whole world is plotting against me, Jessica muttered, a smile she couldn't stop breaking through. The last to arrive were Franco and his wife Maria, whom she had met only a couple of times. He gave Giovanni a quick, significant look before they were all seated. If everyone could take their seats, Giovanni announced, his voice carrying a natural command. We have a great deal to celebrate tonight. The meal that came next was a masterpiece, with Giovanni describing each course, shifting effortlessly between the roles of host and owner. He had placed her at the head of the table, with himself to her right and Lily to her left. Surrounded by family, the room echoed with a laughter that felt real and deep. During the main course, her mother leaned in. Giovanni, this is just incredible. Jessica is so lucky to have found a man like you. No, Mrs. Reed, I am the lucky one. His hand found hers under the table's cover. Your daughter reminds me every day that being a catch is worthless if there's no one there to share it with. Her father, quiet for most of the night, finally spoke up. You're good to her, to both of them. That's all a father can ask for. The simple weight of his approval was enough to make her choke. After 5 years of him seeing her life as a mistake, he was finally seeing them, all of them. Dessert arrived as the sky outside turned to ink, the city becoming a field of electric stars. Gold-dusted chocolate soufflés were set before every guest. Before we begin, Giovanni said, rising and tapping his glass, there's something I need to say. Or rather, something I need to ask. The beat of her heart seemed to stop. Around the table, she saw knowing smiles. She was the only person who didn't know the lines. 3 weeks ago, I went to a wedding for business, not expecting anything to come of it. His gaze found hers and locked on. Instead, I found Jessica hidden at a corner table, trying to vanish when she deserved to be revered. He moved to position himself beside her. I offered a contract, a fiction designed to save face for us both. And Jessica, brilliant and brave as she is, agreed. We danced, we acted, we played the parts assigned to us. Lily giggled next to her, a partner in the beautiful lie. But between that dance and now, the pretense evaporated. The deal became something real. And I fell completely in love with a woman who saves children on 12-hour shifts, who raises a remarkable daughter with grace, and who told a crime boss he couldn't frighten children in her town. Tears now coursed freely down her face. Giovanni sank to one knee, revealing a velvet box from his coat. Jessica Reed, I'm not offering you a false arrangement anymore. I'm offering you what is real. My whole world, my soul, my name. I am offering you a life where you are never overlooked, where you are cherished every moment. He opened the box, the diamond inside catching light like a captive star. Will you marry me? The room went utterly still, every guest seeming to hold their breath. All eyes were on her. Say yes, Mom, Lily whispered loudly, bouncing on her chair. Say yes so I can do my special job. A few chuckles broke the tension in the room. She gazed at this man, who had become her unshakable center in just 3 weeks. The man who cooked pancakes for her daughter and stood up to criminals, all while looking at her as if she held the universe. Yes, the word came out, choked with feeling. Of course, yes. Giovanni slid the ring onto her finger, it fit perfectly, and pulled her up for a kiss as the room burst into applause. When he let her go, Lily was tugging his sleeve. "Now, is it my turn?" "It is your turn," he confirmed, setting her on a chair so everyone could see. She produced a velvet bag from her purse and pulled out 2 plain, shining gold bands. "I present the wedding rings for Ty," she announced. "Mr. Giovanni appointed me ring warden, and I'm showing them so you know this is real and I'm part of this family forever." She presented them with a gravity only a 5-year-old can possess. The room filled once more with laughter and heartfelt applause. "Forever," Giovanni repeated, his eyes on Lily with a love so deep it was almost painful to see. "You both belong to me now." The rest of the night was a blur of champagne and her mother insisting she wasn't crying, despite her tear-stained cheeks. Lauren grabbed her in a hug that took her breath away, telling her she'd never seen her look so radiant. Sophia and her husband immediately volunteered to plan the whole wedding. Then Vanessa came over, her hand on her belly. "I wasn't being insincere," she said softly. "I'm genuinely happy for you. Tyler is—" She paused, searching for the words. "Tyler is just Tyler, but Giovanni is on another level. You better not let him go." "I won't," she promised. "But really, how are you?" "Tired, pregnant, and questioning every choice I've ever made," she answered with a weary smile. "But that's another story. Tonight is about you finally getting what you deserve." As Chicago's lights gleamed like shattered jewels far below, she stood with Giovanni on the restaurant's balcony, a world away from the party inside. There, Lily was dancing with Franco, her laughter a crisp sound in the October night. 3 weeks, she thought. It felt like a lifetime ago she was at another wedding, lost in self-pity. Now she was engaged to a man she knew she'd loved since their first awkward dance, a connection on a soul-deep level. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, a silent vow. "My mother believed in that," he whispered, "that destined souls know each other on sight. My mother would have loved you." Her hand settled over his. "The whole package," she confirmed. "The beautiful mess, the difficult past, the single mom with a 5-year-old. She would have loved you without question." His voice was a raw mix of warmth and grief. "And she would have said the best things are worth fighting for, especially when they're complicated. So what's our plan?" She turned in his arms to face him. "We plan a wedding," he started. "Figure out how to blend my chaotic world with your orderly one, and tell Lily her new dad doesn't just own restaurants, but also has meetings with very powerful people. One day at a time." His kiss on her forehead was their seal on the deal. "We are going to build something true from the lie where we started. We will show that fairy tales can grow in the most impossible places." Inside, the song changed. The DJ, Giovanni's man, started playing the track from Sophia's wedding, the very one they first danced to, back when it was all an elaborate charade. "Dance with me," Giovanni offered, holding out his hand just as he did 3 weeks ago at table 12. "One last dance, only this time it's not an act." She took his hand. They walked back into a room that held their future, where Lily twirled with Camilla, her parents looked truly happy, and their whole world watched a total fabrication become the truest love she had ever known. Giovanni guided her to the floor's center, a stage for their unwritten conclusion. His hand found her back, the same touch as 3 weeks before, but now it grounded a truth, not an act. The charade was over, the contract was null, the show was over, to save no one but each other. Here was a man giving visibility to a woman who felt unseen, and a woman realizing life's greatest gifts often arise from its worst crises. "I love you," she whispered against his chest as they moved to the music's gentle sway. "I love you both," he answered, his new world defined. "My family, my home." In only 3 weeks, a life had been turned completely upside down. The pretend husband had become the forever partner. The perfect stranger had become the father her daughter deserved. And in Giovanni's arms, surrounded by the people who mattered, she had a sudden, clear thought. She realized that sometimes the story gives you the right character at the most crucial moment. That love operates beyond schedules, logic, or any established rules. That a single night of a well-crafted lie could somehow build an eternity of truth with him. And this, she knew, was the most profound and unexplainable magic the world held.
From a psychological standpoint, her story is not fundamentally about romance. It is about pattern interruption. She presents initially as a woman shaped by repeated relational diminishment. There is paternal disappointment, maternal contempt disguised as concern, social demotion within her family system, economic strain, abandonment by a partner during pregnancy, and the long-term burden of single parenthood under conditions of chronic stress. These are not isolated injuries. They form a pattern, and patterns matter because human beings do not simply remember pain, they organize themselves around it. By the time she enters the wedding, she has already internalized the role assigned to her, the one who fell short, the one who became inconvenient, the one whose life can be used as an implicit warning to others. In clinical terms, this resembles a form of identity constriction under sustained shame exposure. She is not without self-respect, but her self-respect has become defensive, compressed, economical. She survives by lowering visibility. This is important. When a person has been repeatedly humiliated, invisibility can feel safer than hope. Then the former partner appears. His function in the story is psychologically transparent. He is not motivated by unresolved love. He is motivated by narcissistic reassurance. He abandoned her, built a new life, and now seeks confirmation that his departure still defines her. Such people often re-enter the emotional field only when they believe the other person remains psychologically available as a mirror. He wants to see pain because pain would affirm significance. His cruelty is not spontaneous, it is strategic. By invoking her lost education and comparing children through the language of legitimacy, he targets core shame nodes, class, motherhood, and perceived failure. This is textbook dominance behavior in an emotionally immature adult. The life lesson here is straightforward. Never mistake renewed contact from a former betrayer as evidence of love. It is often evidence of appetite. Now enter Giovanni. He is psychologically more complicated than the archetype suggests. On first contact, he displays high observational acuity, rapid social assessment, emotional boldness, and controlled confidence. He is also comfortable with deception when it serves relational or tactical goals. Superficially, these could signal manipulation. In another context, they might. But what distinguishes him is the consistent alignment between perception and responsibility. He does not merely identify vulnerability, he moves to shield it. This matters because traumatized individuals are often drawn not to kindness, but to coherence. Coherence is safer than charm. She responds to him not solely because he is attractive or powerful, but because his behavior makes emotional sense. He notices, he acts, he follows through. That kind of consistency is neurologically regulating. A wounded person does not heal around promises. She heals around repeated congruence. However, the story complicates the dynamic by revealing organized crime, territorial violence, and real external danger. Here, most observers would expect the psychological balance to collapse. Why? Because trauma survivors often mistrust intensity, and rightly so, yet she does not withdraw immediately. Why? Because her existing world, though respectable on the surface, was already psychologically unsafe. Her family system weaponized comparison. Her ex weaponized guilt. Her daily life was built on overfunctioning and emotional deprivation. When compared to those conditions, Giovanni's world is objectively dangerous but emotionally less deceitful. That paradox is the engine of the bond. Now consider her daughter. The child functions as the organizing principle of the mother's psyche. Many adults can rationalize danger for themselves. Far fewer can do so for a child. Therefore, whenever Giovanni responds to the child with patience, memory, gentleness, and adaptive care, he is not merely earning affection, he is passing a far more difficult test. He is demonstrating that his protective identity extends beyond erotic attachment. This is psychologically decisive. A man who desires a woman may perform care. A man who cares for her child without resentment reveals structure. That is the third lesson. Watch how a person handles what is most vulnerable in your life. Their true character appears there first. Now let us examine the criminal threat. When the Russians target her as leverage, she experiences sudden escalation from symbolic vulnerability to actual instrumentalization. In plain language, she is no longer merely looked down upon, she is now being used. People with prior histories of relational exploitation often experience such moments with unusual clarity. Something in them recognizes the pattern instantly. Her response in the warehouse is psychologically notable. She confronts power not because she believes herself stronger than it, but because fear has crossed a moral threshold. Her daughter has been implicated, her cousin has been brutalized, her life has become negotiable in other people's schemes. At that point, silence would no longer feel like safety, it would feel like complicity. This is a critical life lesson. Fear can control a person only until her values become more urgent than her survival strategy. The story also offers a useful contrast between Tyler and Giovanni as paternal archetypes. Tyler is the avoidant narcissistic father. He wants symbolic authority without material responsibility. He invokes the child only when doing so restores moral leverage over the mother. This is not uncommon. Such men do not grieve the child, they grieve the loss of control. Giovanni, by contrast, embodies what might be called the protector compensator. He has lived in a violent system and therefore overdevelops anticipatory control. He secures, arranges, monitors, preempts. This can become authoritarian if unchecked. The story is careful to show this tension. He arranges leave from her job. He installs safeguards without prior consultation. From a clinical lens, these are not pure red flags nor pure virtues. They are signs of a man whose love language is strategic containment. For a trauma survivor, this can feel intoxicating. It can also become dangerous if she loses agency. The story avoids that trap because she continues to resist, question, and choose. She is not absorbed, she negotiates. And that leads to perhaps the healthiest point in the narrative. Real protection does not erase a woman's voice, it makes room for it. He does not love her because she is helpless. He loves her because she can stand in fear and still speak. She does not choose him because he controls everything. She chooses him because he uses power in service of responsibility rather than ego. The final emotional question is whether the relationship constitutes repetition compulsion, the traumatic attraction to danger, or genuine corrective experience. The answer appears to be the latter. Why? Because the emotional outcome is expansion, not contraction. She becomes more truthful, more assertive, more visible, more connected to her daughter, more willing to imagine a future. Trauma bonds shrink life. Corrective love enlarges it. That is the final lesson. A healthy love does not merely make pain quieter, it makes the self larger. Her story, therefore, should not be reduced to fantasy. It is a study in what happens when a woman who has been trained to survive finally encounters someone who does not ask her to shrink in order to be loved. The family could not do that. The ex could not do that. The social world around her had no language for it. But the psyche does. It calls that experience safety. Not perfect safety, not innocent safety, but the kind that allows a person to stop disappearing. And for someone shaped by shame, that can feel almost indistinguishable from a miracle.